In the golden age of cartridge gaming, hidden beneath the curved shell of the Nintendo 64 was a mystery most players never noticed: the expansion port. Tucked away on the underside of the console and sealed by a plastic door, it was a piece of technology loaded with ambition. To many gamers, it seemed irrelevant, but to Nintendo, it was once a portal to the future. In the early 1990s, as the N64 was being developed under the codename Project Reality, Nintendo wasn't just thinking about graphics and controllers. The company envisioned a console that could evolve, one that could expand in power and purpose. The expansion port was key to that vision. It would allow the N64 to connect to new peripherals, from disk drives to online modems, creating a machine that could rival the capabilities of a personal computer. The most well-known use for the port was the 64DD, or 64-disk drive. Designed to attach beneath the console, the 64DD used rewritable magnetic disks that could store more data than traditional cartridges. It also featured a real-time clock, allowing for dynamic game worlds that could change with time. Games like SimCity 64, Doshin the Giant, and the F-Zero X expansion kit showcased features like user-generated content and online sharing, concepts that wouldn't become standard until years later. The 64DD was a bold idea, but its release was plagued by delays. Originally announced in 1995, it was pushed back repeatedly and didn't launch in Japan until late 1999. By then, the PlayStation had taken the market by storm, and the Dreamcast was offering true online connectivity. Only 10 games were ever released for the 64DD, and it never left Japan. Nintendo quietly abandoned it, and the expansion port lost its main purpose. But the 64DD wasn't the only idea Nintendo had for the port. Early plans included a modem for online play using a service called RandNet that allowed players in Japan to browse the internet, send messages, and share game data. Some internal documents even suggested the possibility of a satellite receiver, similar to the Super Famicom's Satellaview, which had broadcast episodic game content in the mid-90s. These ideas were far ahead of their time, but also too expensive and complex to work in a mainstream market that was still figuring out what the internet meant. There were also whispers of third-party interest in the port. Developers floated ideas like sound upgrade modules, region converters, and co-processing units, but none of them came to fruition. Nintendo's tight control over its hardware and software, combined with the commercial failure of the 64DD, made the expansion port a dead end. By the time the GameCube entered development, Nintendo had moved on from the dreams attached to the N64's underside. The console had still delivered iconic titles: Super Mario, GoldenEye, Ocarina of Time. But many of its more experimental ideas were shelved. Some of them reappeared later. The idea of downloadable content and persistent game worlds emerged in the GameCube and Wii eras, and the creative tools seen in Mario Artist would inspire titles like WarioWare and Miiverse. The real-time clock would eventually become standard in games like Animal Crossing and Pokémon. For most people, the expansion port remained closed, unused, and forgotten, but in recent years, it has sparked interest among collectors, modders, and tech historians. Some have repurposed it to add HDMI output or connect the console to modern systems. Others have opened it up just to see what could have been, a quiet reminder of Nintendo's willingness to experiment, even when the world wasn't ready. The N64 expansion port was never just a connector, it was a symbol of ambition, a gateway to possibilities that didn't quite materialize. In a different timeline, it might have launched the console into an era of online gaming, creative communities, and evolving digital experiences. Instead, it sits beneath the system, gathering dust, waiting for the curious to lift the plastic door and imagine the future that never came.